Hi everyone, Chris Short again for the sixth workshop, the last one in this series. We're looking at the Regeneration Challenge. So today we're going to be looking at food sustainability and ways that we can recycle things that would normally be thrown away and make them useful planters. So as you can see, I've got here a very old shoe that really I couldn't pass on for anyone else to wear. And rather than put it into the garbage, I'm going to make something useful out of it. It's got holes in the bottom already, and it's pretty worn out. So how to go about that? I guess the other thing I'm going to be showing you too is some, as you can see, some painting, mixing colors, painting techniques. And just brainstorm a few ideas about how you can create some images for if you're going to paint something and make it look like an interesting planter. So there are some different techniques you can use for creating imagery, because when you have a blank canvas looking at you, or a piece of a shoe, you're going, well, what can I do with this? How can I make this interesting? What images can I paint on it? And there are a few techniques you can use. I'm just going to run by some of them. One you can use is a visualization. But first, like observation obviously is another one. You can look at your shoe, you can bend it, twist it, turn it. You can study it. At the moment, look at the different shapes that you have. This one's rather interesting. It's got lots of circles, which can conjure up all kinds of ideas of what you can use with it. You can look at the color. You can look at the textures. And it might give you a place to start with, or that might remind you of something. Like I'm looking at all of these, and it's very almost snake-like on the side there. So that you can get ideas just from observing something, looking at the color, but looking at the colors and the shapes. But one thing you can do to pique your imagination is doing something called a visualization. And for this, what I'd like you to do actually is to close your eyes. I'm going to leave mine open because I'm going to read through this, but I'd like you to close your eyes. And I'd like you to think about your shoe. Maybe it's two shoes. And I would like you to imagine wearing your shoe, walking through snow, walking in sand on a sandy beach. What does it feel like? Imagine splashing your shoes in puddles, jumping up and down. Now take off your shoe. Imagine it changing into something else. A fish, maybe. A frog. A bird. A potato. An alien creature. Or a truck. Or a mysterious flower. Now you have that image in your mind. Imagine it flying in the air, and then coming down to land, and then sliding down a steep slope and stopping right beside a tree. And then imagine it eating supper. Focus in on its color, its textures. Is it bumpy, smooth, prickly, scaly? Does it have eyes and a nose, a mouth, tendrils, wings, or legs, or claws perhaps? Is it feeling happy, or sad, or angry, or calm, or enthusiastic, or full after eating that supper? Now, open your eyes again. And for this, I'd like you to make some sketches. Whatever you see in your mind, some sketches of your shoe, and whatever kind of images you find you're thinking of. You can do a series of sketches, or maybe just one that you want to focus on. So this is one sort of idea for getting your creative juices going. There are, of course, other ones that you can use. There's another one that I've used before where you list like 100 nouns, basically names, words of things, and then you number them, 1 to 100. And then randomly, you just pick a few numbers. So maybe you have, say, number 8, and the word beside it is dream. And then you have maybe number 60 you choose, and the word beside it is omelette. And then you choose, say, 81, and the word is clouds. So your artwork then, or your shoe, might be about dreams, omelettes, and clouds. And somehow in your shoe, when you paint it, you would include those things. So it's kind of a random thing, but it can really be quite fun to mix and match some of these different things that you normally would not put together. So yeah, and of course you've got your interests, whatever you're interested in, you can paint. You can observe nature as well and record it and paint that. Another thing too is to look at different artists and works, and of course every one of these, except for the first one of the workshops, I brought in a book, so I've got another book to share with you today, of course. This book is actually, and this was kind of like a little bit of an inspiration for me when it came to painting one of my shoes. So, and it's called Tuesday, and it's by David Weisner, and it's a really, it's an unusual book. It's no words in it, except for the title. And, well, no, actually, I tell a lie. There are some words, a few words, but very minimal words. So if you have a look here, it says Tuesday evening around 8. I hope you can see these. Full of these wonderful toads. And they're taking off and flying. Where are they going? It gets to 11:21 p.m. I don't know if you can see there the man right through the window. There's some strange things going on in the background there. Oops. I love the humour on this. There they are, all tangled up in the washing. And they keep flying on through the night. It's a beautiful book, so well illustrated. So the artist did such a fantastic job of this. And there we are. Again, they're flying through living room. Now, as if you can really, see flying frogs or toads. It's using your imagination, which is wonderful. 4:38 a.m., so it's now getting to be morning. And it looks like we've got a young toad there in a little bit of trouble with the dog waking up and chasing it. And let's go through here. Oh, no, I think maybe the toads have taken over, and it's the dog that's running away. Oh my. It's getting light there, a little bit of daylight just hitting that chimney. And, oh, there they are coming down to land, back down to the pond. And what do we have left? A little bit of a puzzle. We have all these lily pads that they've been flying on, scattered all over the floor. Rather puzzled detective. I love the ending of this one. Next Tuesday at 7:58 p.m. What's going to be flying next Tuesday. Again, love this book. You can see we've got pigs next Tuesday. So again, it's a wonderful imaginative thing with that you can use as a source. And for me, it was kind of a little bit of an inspiration for painting one of my shoes that I'm going to use for a planter. So, okay, what do we need to do first? Well, first of all, you need to clean your shoe. And if you've got some areas which are quite smooth, you might want to get like a little piece of sandpaper and just roughly sand the edges, just to rough them up a little bit. So, sandpaper, this is all prepping your shoe for painting. And then, of course, the other thing that you do need to do, is cleaning off your shoe as much as you can, sandpaper it down. You also need to make some holes for drainage in your shoe. Otherwise, the water will collect inside, and that's not a good idea to have water sitting there. So it's nice for it to drain off, and it's much better for your plants to grow. So to make a hole, you can use a drill, but of course that does use electricity. So you can do it the old-fashioned hand method, hammer, nail, and I always put this on a cork base because otherwise when your nail goes through, you're going to end up with a hole in your floor if you don't have something to do it. So you can see it doesn't work very well on a table. Do it on the floor, but you get the idea. So you make your holes, make a few of them so that the water can drain out. Okay? This is all prepping your stuff ready for painting. So got that there. Now, the first thing you need to do is to put some kind of a primer to seal your shoe as well, because otherwise it's going to get kind of rotten. So I've actually done that with this shoe here. This is a different type of shoe. I have a few of these old shoes around. And what I've done here too, I've used, it's actually a recycled acrylic latex, non-toxic paint. And if you can go to the paint shop, sometimes they have these pre-mixed paints that people, don't want anymore. So you can actually get, quite a good, it's actually kind of recycling the paint in a way. Rather than it being thrown out, you can use it for different things. And that's what I've actually got here, and I've poured some out here for you. I tried to get a blue, but the closest I could come is more like a turquoise color. So I don't know if you can see that here. I have close to primaries. I've got a red, a sort of rose color, a lemony yellow, and then I have this turquoisey blue kind of color. And then I've got white, and white is very useful for tints. So first of all, big brush, nice wide brush. And the types of brushes that you use for painting, you can do different things with them. So a big wide brush and all the way through the inside and give it a nice coat of primer. So now, it's like a white canvas, and you've got to put all those images you've thought of, or not all of them, but some of them that you've chosen to put on your shoe, your canvas. Okay, so I'm going to put that one over there. That's the next step. So, step after that. This is one shoe I'm still working on, and I'm going to do a little bit more on it. You can see where I don't know if you can make out there the inspiration. I've got like a little toady frog there, and the two little sockets here that for my laces I've turned into eyes. I was wondering what to do with all of these, and I was thinking of snakes and things, but I kind of like the idea of having this little frog fella with eyes. So at the moment I'm still in the middle of painting this, and I've got a little insect kind of appearing up here. So I'm going to show you a few techniques and how you might approach the painting of your shoe. Now you'll notice that I've got mainly this sort of an undercoat of green. What I did is I actually did, after the primer, I put a little coat, because I kind of like that color. I thought it was it made me think of water and ponds and mud and stuff like that. So I put the green all the way around first of all, and then I mixed some colors. Now, you can see where I've mixed some of them here. When you're mixing the colors, you can create such a wonderful range of colors here from primaries. So And I'm just going to show you a few here that you might be able to make, and how you go about mixing your colours. It's always best to start with a light colour first and then add more colour. So if I've got going to mix any of these, like making this green, I took first of all some of the yellow, right? And then a different brush, I took a small amount of that green and mixed it in. Very small amount, mostly yellow, just a little bit of green. You can see very quickly it turns into that green. So now I have that lovely green colour. If I was going to make this purpley colour at the end there, I would start with, I'm just going to put these brushes, I've got some water. I recycle my yogurt pots, but I never use them for food afterwards, of course. When I'm recycling my containers, they are only for artwork. Now, so if I'm going to make a purple, for instance, I would start with the red. The red is slightly lighter colour than that turquoisey blue. So I've got some of my red there first, and then I'll get a little touch of the turquoisey blue and add it to it. You see, I almost overdid that, but it's actually a very red, it's almost like a deep red that I can make there, which actually is rather nice. It's not quite purple, is it? If I added a little bit more blue, I'd be able to do that, to make it into this more purpley colour, very dark. Now, if I want to make a brown, I wonder if you know which colours to mix to make brown. Well, I've got two colours here, and I've got two colours there. I wonder what I need to add to make it into a brown. If you guessed right, that's super. I would need to add the colour I didn't have before. So if I've got my green, I'm going to need, green has got the that turquoisey colour and the yellow. If I add a little touch of the red, I've got a red brush here. I'm just going to add a little touch of that, and we'll see if we can get a kind of a brown. If I do that, I think you can see there. You see how it's turning into a kind of a tan colour. These colours are slightly tinted. In other words, they have a little bit of white in them. So they're not as pure as some of those other colours, but you can mix such a wonderful range. So there you have like a nice sort of light tan colour happening when you've got all three together. So this one here, I've got, at the moment, I have the red and the green. So what colour would I need to add? Yeah, you guessed. Some of the yellow. Now, this time I'm adding the lighter colour on top of doing it the other way around. But have a look here and see what happens when I add that yellow to there. It's actually turning out to be a different kind of brown. I think I maybe need a little bit more, and you can tweak it, like, and change different parts. I'm going to add a little bit more of that turquoise green. You see how you can change that brown just by adding a little bit more of another colour. Okay, so it's not quite this one yet, but it's getting there if I added a bit more green. You can make so many different colours when you mix to paint with. Now, the other thing you can do, of course, is mix some tints. Tints are when you add white to a colour, and you say these are a little bit, this yellow is a little tinted, that they're all just a slight bit tinted, so you get these more sort of softer colours coming through. But let me just show you, if you're going to mix, now if you're going to make a very light tint, then you would start, again, you start with the lightest colour. So I'm going to start with white. And what I did for this area here, started with the white, and then I added the tiniest amount. Tiniest amount. Oh, that was a bit too tiny. I'm just very lightly. I have to be very careful that I don't pollute my colours, because if you put another brush into your colour, you're going to pollute it. Let me just wash this brush off a little bit here. And I've got an old cloth here, an old rag that I can use to just dry off my brush a little bit there. Okay, let me just add a little bit more of this one to get that very light, if you can see that there, that very light blue. Now, and this is tint, so it's a tint, it's made it very, very pale blue. These colours tend to dry a little bit darker too, so if you're thinking, yeah, how light you'd like it, just, yeah, a little bit lighter than what you want and it will dry a little bit darker. Okay, so mixing colours, mixing tints, you can make so many different colours, it's really fascinating, right, depending on what you want to do. So now, how did I start with this? Well, first of all, if you want to, you can paint alla prima, just paint. You don't have to draw. Or you can get your pencil and you can just draw a little outline. So if I was going to here, do another one of these little frogs, I could do a little outline with my pencil so that I know, give it a mouth there, and maybe do his little hands coming through. So I can see, you can draw very, very lightly there, and he's got all these lovely ripples underneath there, and his little hand coming out here. So you can draw and just sketch very lightly. And the nice thing about drawing and sketching on this is if you make a mistake, you can just erase it off, and it will disappear again. So wonderful to use. And the other nice thing about these paints is, if you don't like what you have, you can just paint over again with another colour. So very flexible. Okay, so a few techniques that you can use. Well, one, let me just put these into my tub here. And I'm going to get a very fine brush. If you're going to do an outline, you need a smaller brush to make an outline with. So for this one here, I want to make you can make darker outlines or lighter ones. For this one here, I'm going to use this brown here just to outline the outside of my little frog here. Here he goes. And give him a wonderful little mouth there. Whoa, it's a little bit thick there. Anyway, yeah, so you can use outlining. So that's like beginnings. There he is there. You can outline, if you can see that there. And it takes a little bit of time for it to dry. But if you can do another thing you can do, and because I'm going to put the red eyes in, so a small brush is really good for that. You can blend different colours. So I'm just going to rinse off a couple of these here. Get some of the paint off there. Wipe it off so that they're dry. Okay. And you can blend colours actually on your shoe. So if I want to have, say, a darker green and a lighter green, so if I'm going to put the darker green around this fella here, I can put it down just around like this. Oops, picked up a little bit of the brown because it hasn't quite dried yet. So I've got the dark, that sort of green there. If I want to put some more highlights with this one, I can just put some of these in here and then slowly blend the colours together so you get like a little bit of blending and mixing in there. So a little bit of a highlight here under his nose or under his eye. And so you can do some really fun stuff with blending. 2 brushes, just for doing that you can blend in there. Slowly coming. Right, so blending is another thing. Another thing you can do too, different techniques you can use, is you can use some masking tape, and you may have already done this before too, is take a little bit of masking tape and you can cut it to, the way, the size you want with some good scissors, which these ones don't seem to be all that great. There we go, 1 and 2, and you can mask off an area on your shoe. Ta-da. Okay, so maybe at the front here I want to mask off a little area. I'm just going to do this to show you. 1, 2, maybe make a little square or something on the front there. I need 2 more pieces, of because a square has 4 sides, or a rectangle, it might end up being more like a rectangle, or a quadrilateral of some kind. It will end up being, won't be exact, I'm sure. This is a little bit tricky to try and get it exact on a shoe. So I'm going to put that down there. And another one here. Yeah, no, it's going to be a rectangle for sure. Right, so have a nice little seal there. You can see I've sealed the tape there. This part's hanging over. Right, and then you can choose your colour that you want to fill in. So I'm going to go with some of this red. Nice and bright, so red really stands out. And just paint in your area. And with this red too, it might need a couple of coats. So you can always put a couple of coats there. We'll let one coat dry and then another one come up. Okay. So, got my red there. And then just so it makes it nice and clear, I can lift off my tape. Like so. It's like magic, and I have a wonderful square happening. Get my tape off there. This one and this one. So you see how easy that is to make some wonderful geometric shapes using masking. So that's a real cool technique that you can use. Now, another technique you can use too, which is really interesting when you start looking at all the different painting techniques. I'll put that there. Another one you can do is stippling. Now, for stippling, you need a brush that's, got very sort of lots of ends to it, and you need to use, it needs to be a dry brush, so not a wet brush. And you need to pick up just a little bit of paint on the end of your brush. So you don't want to load it with lots of paint, just a little tiny bit. And in some ways to do that, it's easier if you take some of it from a pool and lay it down onto a surface like this, right? Put that in my tub, and then just dab the ends of your brush into this. So it doesn't load the brush, it's like a dry brush, and it's just picking it up on the ends. And then this is rather cool if you want to, like for here, I'm sort of looking at making sandy sort of effect, if you like, or grainy effect. Some of those textures I was talking about before with the visualization is being able to, and you can just dab, and it's a wonderful technique for making things look kind of bumpy and lumpy, and yeah, here we go, all the way around the bottom of my shoe. And keep going. So yeah, so you get a dry brush, and stippling, this is called. So another technique that you can use. Let me see what else. There's so many different techniques, and I'd love for you to explore some of your own. What other ones I was going to show you? Let me see. Oh, some alternate painting tools, because you don't have to just use brushes. You can use all kinds of things for painting with. And here I've actually used the yogurt pot lid and cut out different shapes. And I don't know if you can see this little insect just on the side there. These are rather handy for making very straight, thin lines, but you do have to load them carefully. So I'm going to put just a little bit of the round just there. And so it's not like overloaded, but you can see it's just got a little bit there. And then very carefully, I just make a little mark. Oh, that was a bit too thick. Maybe what I'll do is I'll turn that into the body. If you make a mistake, you can actually wipe it off. If you're really quick, you can just get like a little damp cloth and you can wipe it off very quickly if you make a mistake on this. See, like so, no problem. Or you could transform it into something else. This is something that I do a lot. If you make a mistake with something, so if I make this, I could just turn it into a body, right? And then maybe what I'll do now with my piece here is make sure I've scraped off enough of this so it doesn't make a blob. Let's see if I can get it to work here. One, there you go. One little insect leg, and then line up with another little insect leg. And oh, there's a bit of a gap there, so I can actually use this to paint with and make that gap there. See how easy that is? So feel free to experiment with different tools. And I've got all kinds of different lengths and sizes here that I can use for this, which is, yeah, lots of fun. So, yeah, techniques. Colors, mixing colors. You can have so much fun, actually, creating your own planter with an old shoe. But, of course, once it's painted, then you need to do the planting part. And make sure I haven't missed anything here. So they're very shallow, these shoes. This one I think would be a little bit deeper if I sealed up the edges. But this one's quite shallow, so it would be good for planting seeds, and then and for certain types of herbs it would be very good for things like I'm just trying to think now, maybe some thyme. You know, stuff that grows low to the ground, doesn't have a big, large root system. But I'm going to start here. So what I've got here is just some, you see that, like a little scrap of that weed cloth, just to line the bottom of your shoe with. So I put some of that inside, there, like so. And of course, you know, the idea behind growing some of your own food is that all of our food, if it comes from away, of course, it needs to be transported. And what do we use to transport it? Fossil fuels, mostly. So if we can grow it here, it's actually helping our environment by growing our own food. Also, our own food is much more, well, it's healthier for us. It's fresh, it's more nutritious. It hasn't lost any of that stuff in transport. So, yeah, one, it's beneficial for our environment in many different ways, and it's beneficial for us too. And it's kind of fun. It's also cheaper as well, because if you have to pay a lot to transfer food from somewhere else to here, that costs a fair amount of money. If you can grow it yourself, then it ends up being cheaper. And it tastes better too whenever you pick your own stuff, so your own food. Anyway, so to get back to our shoe planter, so I've lined this, as you can see, on the inside there. And what I need first is, that really helps with drainage, is I need a few pebbles. So I went down to the beach the other day and picked up some pebbles. I love going to the beach. You find all kinds of useful things on the beach. And I've got some pebbles here, just tiny ones, because this is, you know, you don't want a whole bunch of these here, but just enough to line the bottom of your shoe. Just put it down to the end there a little bit, just to give it a little bed of, there we go. Just helps with the drainage there. There we go. So I've got some of that there. And then, so I've got my shoe lined with a few pebbles. Float them down there. And I've got some soil too, which I'm now going to put into my shoe. Try to get it so that it will stay in the cloth, not out. This ends up being the, you know, messy bit, but isn't it fun to play with? Isn't it fun to play with soil? I don't think we're ever too old or young to play with soil and to grow things. And you know, when you're actually gardening too, it's very rewarding. And I mean, shoes are very small to work with, but you can use other objects that would be, you know, perhaps thrown away. This summer I was actually doing a project with the League of Artists of Western Newfoundland, Lawn, and we were doing a project with old wheelbarrows. So we made these little mini gardens that we were able to grow food in. So you don't need like a garden plot or a garden. You can actually create a shoe or use a wheelbarrow or any other old thing. I've seen people use bathtubs before. And of course in Corner Brook here we have the Western Environment Centre too, and they are doing a fantastic job there with community gardens. So that's something else that you can look at too. Whoops, bit too much soil coming in there. So that's another thing you can do is actually, get one of their plots and grow some of your own food if you haven't got a garden. So, yeah, lots of opportunity. Now, so you can see there's quite a bit of soil that you can get in that shoe. There we go. It's getting there. I'm going to have to finish painting it, I think, after I've planted my seeds for this one. But that's okay. You can do that. You can paint it as much as you like. So it's fairly full up to the top there. You might need just a touch more. Okay. And put the paint and everything over the side there. Put my brush away. Okay. So now, and I've got some cloth just on the edge, over the edge. What I can do is either tuck that in, which is fine to do that, or you can cut it off. I'm just going to tuck it in on the edge there, so it's not showing, and it always looks a bit nicer when it's all tucked in there. Okay. So, got my shoe planter with soil. Much more fun to have a shoe planter than a regular planter, and put your own ideas on it. And if you're doing this in a classroom, it would be so neat to see all these shoes all painted and having all your food growing. You can grow herbs or even like small lettuce and stuff like that as well. So, but bigger plants, you would need to transplant them out and put them into a pot where the root system could be have a chance to grow. But these are great for starters. Okay, so now I need some seeds. And I've got a few cilantro seeds here because you can actually see them, right? And you need to know how to plant them as well. So you know how much space they need between each seed and how deep they need to go. So these ones here need to go about 6 millimeters in, which is kind of about that much, deep down into the soil. And they need to be about 2.5 centimeters apart. So I'd say I always do this with fingers. 2 fingers and a half a finger apart. Okay, so to leave enough space, I'm going to just make a tiny little hole there and pop my seed in. And then make sure I'm 2.5 over. Put my little seed in. And there we go. One more. And another one. I think I've got just enough room for 8 little plants here. Now, not all of them might grow. Some of them might. Hopefully, a lot of them will. And if they start getting crowded, then you can just very carefully take them out and repot them, perhaps into another shoe. Yep, that one there. And this one here. Okay. So hopefully I'm going to have 8 little cilantro pots. And of course now I do need to water my shoe. Just rather, I've got to water your shoe, your shoe planter. And make sure that you keep it. I find when you've got little seedlings like this, it's an idea to cover them just with something. If you've got like a little something around, like maybe a recycled lid or something like that, that you can just put on just to keep the moisture in. Or one of those spray bottles, just spray every day, just spray like me. And this paint is very good because it's a latex paint, so it resists water really well. It doesn't run. Exterior latex is the best. Acrylic latex is the best because it doesn't. You don't lose the paint once it's dry, because you do have to let it dry. So yeah. So here you have then your planter, which makes it really fun. And once the plants start growing, it's rather lovely to see, and you've got your own imagination and creativity and care that's gone into making your planter. And of course, they'd make a lovely gift for someone else, if someone else who wants to grow some food. So lots of opportunity there. Okay, so and I mean, in some ways it ties in with Newfoundland tradition here, because I know people have told me that people used to have lots of gardens and grow their own food here, and many people still do. So I hope this will help a little bit to sustain our environment, sustain our ability to grow our own food here in Newfoundland, because it's very important for so many reasons, as I pointed out. And I hope you've enjoyed this series of workshops, and wish you all the best with your creative endeavors and all the help that you're doing to help our environment and to take care of each other and the world that we live in.